How extraterrestrial contact affects my consciousness. What is the difference between my 3D experiences and my 5D experiences? Stay for the whole video because I'm going to go through some very specific lists, which I think you will find very interesting. In order to understand all of this, it is my suggestion to question your reality and then change it. Please join us every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a live guided interdimensional meditation to activate the solar flash ascension and destroy the dark forces. These meditations, for me at least, are getting more and more incredibly powerful. It's getting harder and harder just to stay in my body when we're doing this. There's a lot of powerful, amazing things that are happening. And I invite all of you to come. It's free, and even if you can't make it during the live stream, you can show up after it's been archived. Go to the live section on the YouTube channel to be a part of this with us. If you like what I do on this channel, then please support it by going to thunderwizard.com and subscribing, not at the free level, although you can, of course, but where I really get the benefit is when you subscribe at the levels where you get teachings. It's the subscriptions that keep me going. You can also find my books at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Look at all the different ways that you can learn by going to the shop as well. If you want to support me directly, you can just go to support.thunderwizard.com. Follow the instructions there. I really appreciate everybody who has pitched in. The fact that I am where I am now in my new home, the fact that I'm where I am now in my new home is because of those who decided to support. Because I had out of nowhere, I had a real big moving drama crisis, and you guys helped me with that. So I'm still not completely out of the woods, so I still enjoy your help. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this. So looking at this is what it feels like to me. That when I'm in my third dimensional self, I'm walking around like a normal person, but when I'm connected to the astral realm with my extraterrestrial friends, this is what it's like for me. And you can imagine there's a challenge trying to stay in this third dimension after, being where we've been. So I'm going to go through some very specific things. This is what I have learned about reality after my experiences, as a result of my ongoing experiences communicating and interacting with higher dimensional forces, which includes extraterrestrials. And again, if you're new to the channel, extraterrestrials are not those little creepy beings that climb in through windows and through your roof and put you in a trance and make it so that you can't move, and then take you out through the roof and put you inside a ship and poke things around in you and stick things in you. Those aren't extraterrestrials. Those experiences do happen. They're called abductions. They do happen exactly the way people describe them. However, those abductions are actually performed by human beings using all kinds of crazy advanced energy weapons and mind control and drugs and stagecraft and technology. So unfortunately, it's done so well, people, because it's so bizarre to their reality, they honestly think it's extraterrestrials, but it's not. Extraterrestrials never do that. They never violate your boundaries. It's the first thing you should know. One guy left me a question about some experience where he was meditating or something. I don't know the guy. Don't know anything about him, but he says he was meditating and some Pleiadian came and said some really foul things. And he didn't describe in there how he had sought their connection, and they always ask permission. Just to let you know, when my extraterrestrial friends come to visit, and they don't visit like in ships, even though they can if they wanted to, and they have. They come to me in their 5-dimensional connection, and they always ask my permission. I can feel their presence, and I'll know to close my eyes and say, is somebody there? Somebody would like to speak with me. And they always ask my permission. They'll say, can we talk to you? So if you're having experiences where beings are not coming to you in that way, they're not extraterrestrials. I don't care what they are. There's all kinds of other beings out there. Extraterrestrials, by definition, are higher dimensional beings, or they wouldn't be able to make it here to Earth. So we're going to talk about what Earth is. So I didn't write it, so let's talk about the general assumption. Your experience of Earth that you have is that you live in base reality, and that when you look out into space, you're looking out into infinity, and you think that's all there is. That's what science believes. That's what scientists believe, that the universe is everything. In fact, that's why it's called the universe. The one location. There isn't anything beyond it. And nothing could be further from the truth. That is your perception and your experience. So you're not wrong, because third dimension is set up so that you would have that kind of experience. But that's not the reality of it. The third dimension is a closed, it's a closed system, meaning that it is the furthest thing from the universe. It is a microcosm, and it's like a classroom in a university. If you're inside a classroom at the university and all the doors and windows are closed, and somebody says, this is the entire universe, and you've never been out of that classroom, you go, oh, this must be the entire universe. No, there's so many other rooms and then so many other buildings and so many other amphitheaters, and university is a big place. But if you're just stuck in one little tiny room, and that's what the third dimension is. Even the entire third dimensional universe is a tiny little bubble, and it is self-contained. So first address that assumption. If your assumption is that you look out into space and you think that that's everything that there is, you couldn't be more wrong. You're locked in a closet and you've never been outside. That's your experience. And so let's keep going here. Yeah. All right, so how ETs transform my understanding of consciousness. So just by interacting and communicating with extraterrestrials, here is what I've learned. For third dimension, animism is the most accurate explanation of consciousness. Excuse me. So if you know what the term animism means, it is actually the appropriate term that most people want to use when they use the word shamanism. Shamanism is actually a very specific form of animism that is practiced by the indigenous people of Siberia. And, Native Americans, people, call Native American shamanism. And Native Americans get their bristles up on that because they're not Siberian. And the word shaman means an animist priest or priestess in the Tengarist religion. Tengarism is the word for Siberian animism, and the practitioners of it are shamans. So it would be like walking into a Catholic church or walking, a better example would be walking into a Baptist church and calling the pastor the priest. You would go, there aren't any priests here. I'm the pastor. You might get offended by it. So the real term for what truly describes what the universe is, that I didn't know but I know now, is animism. And my interactions with extraterrestrials have completely totally destroyed any religiosity or even spirituality. It's now just a fact of existence, a fact of consciousness. It's not a belief. I was a Christian for my childhood and my early adulthood, my early 20s, and that's a belief system. Yeah, I had experiences in it, but they even call it a faith. They even tell you the way to get saved is have an intellectual belief. And then if you have experiences that go completely contrary to that, they'll tell you, well, God's ways are not your ways. You're not allowed to, they even say, do not lean on your own understanding. In other words, don't listen to your experiences. Don't learn from your experiences. Listen to what we tell you. Believe what's written arbitrarily in this book. That's called an intellectual belief. I don't operate from beliefs anymore. I only operate from my experiences. And this is going to be true for everybody. One of the things that my extraterrestrial friends showed me was that that's what's coming from this shift, is that there's going to be no more religion, no more beliefs, no more faiths. People are going to have a direct experience with the science and the direct experience, the energy of consciousness. There won't be two people arguing about the nature of existence. It would be like me and you arguing about the nature of gravity. No, we're both walking around. You're not like floating up above, 2 feet above me, and we both know exactly what it feels like. We know what it feels like to be cold. We know what it feels like to be warm. We know what it feels like, when it's dark and when it's light. We don't have to talk about my belief about, what light is like and my belief of what darkness is. No, you have an experience of it, and it's not up for negotiation. Everybody understands it. It's common knowledge. What we call spirituality, what other people call religion, is going to become common knowledge for everybody, and there won't be any religions anymore. It doesn't mean that there won't be people who are more powerful in their connection, and doesn't mean that there won't be beings on higher levels. There will be. Doesn't mean that they won't know more than we do about the science of reality. They will. But there won't be any belief systems. Because what will happen, what has been happening with me, is that ETs will come, and I'll explain to you, my definition of extraterrestrial. ETs will come and they say, we want to show you something. And if they do speak something, like this guy right here showed up and said, you are a probability. It wasn't just an idea in my head. When he was speaking that, and of course it wasn't audible, it was telepathic and energetic. The energy, when they speak, energy comes with it, and that energy is the message. The energy actually creates. So it's like, in the Bible when, God said, let there be light. It wasn't like he was thinking, that's a good idea. According to that understanding, he spoke it into existence. Now, I'm referencing that because that's actually part of other spiritual paths that I respect, and they all have that same thing, that the beginning of creation is spoken into existence. That's why there's such a thing as mantras, as chants, and because those frequencies create reality. And you can't have a frequency without an intention. So anyway, when this person, my friend here, told me I was a probability, there was a power that came with it that took me to that understanding, to that place, and completely, totally, it's the power that these beings have when they speak, is because they're coming from a place of more concentrated energy and consciousness. Anyway, I'm going off on tangents, as I always do. So for 3D, animism is the most accurate explanation of consciousness. Animism means that everything has a conscious personality. So that's different from, say, pantheism, panentheism, which says that God is in everything. So this bottle of kombucha soda, it has the glass in here and the liquid in here and the plastic on the cap. They all have consciousness, but you can't really communicate with it. It's just there's consciousness there, and so it's this nebulous intellectualization of it. But I've come to find out that no, it is literal. And animism is right. An animist would say that the spirit of this bottle told me, and a long time ago I looked into Huna animism. And Huna is the indigenous belief of the Hawaiians, and it's very powerful animism. And the guy who was teaching, he's passed away. He's since moved on, but his name was Haleakala Hugh Lin, a Hawaiian guy, and he would talk to everything. He would talk to when he was doing a video, the camera. He would say, "Oh, the camera wants you to know." I mean, everything talked to him, and it sounded silly to me. I mean, I appreciated it and I respected it, and I kind of admired it. But I was like, no, that camera doesn't have a spirit. That camera doesn't have a... But no, somebody came up with the concept of the camera, and it was put together. And it was put together to serve a function and to do certain things. And once that happens, that camera has an individual identity. And so he would talk about going to the store, and I can't remember if he said this, but somehow I got this experience, and then I had the experience. This was years ago. This had to have been 15 years ago. And go to the store, and there's an apple that is asking, "Please take me home and eat me. That's my purpose." And so he'd go and he'd listen for the whichever fruit had some kind of karmic connection with him, and asked to be taken home and eaten. So he did. And I went to the store, and sure enough, I had the same experience. And I tried telling my wife about it. She goes, "Oh, honey," and rolled her eyes. And so I gave up on it. I felt so ashamed after that. But now I know, after having this experience, that is the reality. Everything. Blade of grass, a piece of sand, a tree, a leaf, everything. Clouds in the sky. Every atom has a consciousness that you can communicate with. So this is what I learned, not because I was taught it, no ET sat me down and said, "Here," it was my experience. In fact, one day, this was early on, again, if you're new to the channel, go watch my video on my channel in the aliens folder or whatever it is. Go and playlist, the aliens playlist. Go and watch the video "How I Became an Extraterrestrial," and you'll know how this all started. But early on, this was 2.5 years ago. Early on, again, my friend showed up. He was my first teacher who came to me every day for a long time, and he showed up and he said, "Go outside." And so I was like, okay. I thought a spaceship was going to come, or I was going to see a spaceship in the sky or something like that. And I went outside, and it was a full moon, and the moon started talking to me. The moon sent a telepathic message, and I'm like, "Are you talking to me?" I'm sending this out telepathically to the moon. "Are you talking to me?" Second goes by, and I'm having that same energetic interaction that I was having with my friend here. And then I tried it with the stars. So I'd pick a star and I'd say, "Hello, star. My name is Mahadeva. Can you hear me?" Second or two would go by, and the energy would hit me. And yes, I'm so happy that you're here. And then before I knew it, I was talking with everything. Everything was talking to me. If I wanted to, I could have had a conversation with every blade of grass. Now, bear in mind, you're asking me what was he on. I wasn't on anything. I was 100% completely sober. But I had this experience, and it was animism. Animism is seen as the most primitive. And that's true. It's the oldest religion. And we think of, that's what those, tribal people have to do because they live out in the jungle and that's how they, stay one with nature, blah, blah, blah. Oh, isn't that a beautiful, but we don't buy it. I'm telling you, that's the nature of the universe. Everything has a specific identity and personality and can communicate directly with you, and you can have a relationship with everything, consciously, energetically, whatever it is. So for the third dimension, animism is the most accurate explanation of consciousness. Three-dimensional Earth experience is limited to interaction with 2D icons and objects. So, right now I'm making this video and I'm interacting with icons. None of it is real. I mean, I'm moving, you can't see it, but I'm moving my mouse around and little pointer is going, and there's all a bunch of, documents and pictures and folders because my, desktop is a mess. And but they're all icons. If I click on a picture will come up. If I click on something, it'll open. But none of it is actual. None of it is real. It is all approximated. It's an icon. It's not real. When I click on a folder and move it somewhere else, or take a document and put it inside a folder, there isn't a printed document that's going inside a folder. That's not happening. There's a bunch of ones and zeros moving around. It's not at all what it appears to be. That's the third dimension. The third dimension is a bunch of icons. Now, we live in the third dimension, but you may not realize this. This blew my mind when I actually came to realize this, but we don't experience things in the third dimension. We see everything in 2 dimensions. That's why we use screens. Now, I'm looking at, I can see picture of myself, but that looks similar. Looks like a real person sitting there. And if somebody was actually physically in my office here and was sitting in the chair opposite of this desk, they would look to me exactly like that icon does, that video picture. 2 dimensions because my eyeballs perceive things in 2 dimensions. Light comes in and hits the back of my eyeball in 2 dimensions. My brain reconstructs it and can see from the angles and the shadows that there's a third dimensional reality, but it's inferred. The only way, if I'm looking at somebody sitting on that, the only way for me to feel that they're third dimensions, if I were to go there and actually put my hand on the person's head, then I could feel all the parts. But if I'm looking at it, this room I'm just seeing 2 dimensions. We experience everything in 2 dimensions, black and white, up and down, good and bad. What was my point about that? So for the 3D Earth experience is limited to interaction with 2-dimensional icons and objects. It's one of the reasons why we feel so isolated. It's one of the reasons why people have the luxury to come up with the belief in false beings of light who trap you into reincarnation, who believe that there are evil reptilian overlords that are ruling this galaxy, because that's their experience. And of course, they always see them as evil, because you can't have evil without good, the 2 dimensions, good and evil. Judgment. Things are very different outside of the 3rd dimension. There isn't any judgment, and there isn't any negativity. There's only love and understanding. And that's because they actually experience things. So if we go up to the 4th dimension, beings that live in the 4th dimension see in 3 dimensions, but they live in the 4th dimension. Beings that live in the 5th dimension see in 4 dimensions, but they live in 5. That's it for another video, but that's interesting stuff. So in the 3rd dimension, there is a difference between external and internal experience. When I do my meditations, the guy on, as you're looking at, the guy on the right, that's how I'm feeling. Everything is very different, and my insides are, have exploded out into other realms. And then in my 3rd dimension here on the left, all that stuff is now internalized. And so when I'm back in the third dimension, everything that I just experienced is only an internal memory. I can't point to it. I can't prove it. I can see the effects of it, like that. But that is a third dimensional thing, that there's a difference between internal and external. That is only in the third dimension. And when we get into higher dimensions, in higher dimensional interactions can only be achieved internally in the third dimension. So when I'm in the third dimension and I want to actually go to 5D, the only way I can experience that is if I go into a deeper, if I meditate and have an internal experience. And this is very challenging, because this is one of the reasons it makes you think you're nuts. Because in our third dimensional world, if I say there's a bottle with kombucha in it, I can pick it up and show it to you. There it is. It's not just an idea. It's a real physical, tangible, three-dimensional object. Five-dimensional concepts, objects, experiences don't manifest in the third dimension. So when I tell people about, this mantis being came and interacted with me, he was interacting with me on a higher dimensional level. And so I had to, allow my consciousness to at least go towards that, which means that it wasn't something that if you were standing next to me, you could see. Maybe if you were open to it, you might feel his presence or communicate to him, but you can have two people standing right next to each other. And if a fifth dimensional being pokes their head into the third dimension, and or they send energy from higher dimensions, one person who's actually seeking to experience that dimension might see and feel and hear something, and the person who's not won't. And so there have been times people do CE5 and one person will say, "Do you see that?" And the other person will say, "What?" The other person will say, "Can you hear that?" I say, "Hear what?" "Can you feel that?" I say, "Feel what?" I know, because the first time I did it, I've got it recorded. I have evidence, vocal evidence and other evidence, lights and stuff that I recorded that I didn't see, because I wasn't really open to it. I wasn't open enough. Even though I wanted to have the experience, I wasn't ready for it, so I couldn't see it. Didn't mean it wasn't there. So this is one of the difficult parts about the third dimension, is that we have a higher dimensional experience, but when we're back in 3D, it's only something that we carry within us. We can't physically prove it. And it's hard to stay sane when you've got that. Again, that's why this picture. This is me almost, I'm not going to say all the time during the day, but there are, depending on the days, there will be days when I am in both of these realms simultaneously. And anyway, we'll talk more about what that means. All right, so 5D reality is spiritual, energetic, and emotional quantum entanglement. The point behind that is that third dimensional interaction is physical and separated. That's why standing next to somebody, you don't know what they're thinking, you don't know what they're feeling, unless they speak to you or point or do physically manipulate you, you have no idea what they're thinking and feeling and what they want. You are separated. Because we're just two icons on a desktop. My icons can't talk to each other. They're separated. We live in this three-dimensional separation. Again, we live in the third dimension, but we experience two dimensions. So once we get out of the third dimension, that changes. And you're no longer two icons on a desktop. You're now intermingled. You're now two quantum objects that are now completely interacting with each other. One of the first things that struck me when I started interacting with these beings was the level of what felt like intimacy. It almost felt, even though I didn't get sexually aroused, it almost felt sexual because it was so intimate. And I could feel the emotions. It wasn't just that I was getting telepathic communications, because the truth is, what happens is I get an energy which is usually tons of very blissful, happy, joyous, loving feelings, and then I have to put myself in a state and allow my imagination to interpret what is verbally being said. And anyway, that's a whole other subject to talk to, but it's not just two people talking at each other, it's actually entanglement. You become entangled with this being, and the experiences, well, it's blissful and amazing and otherworldly. It's just, there's nothing like it. But that's how they function. That's their entire reality. They're intermingled with each other. And that's why it can feel so sexual. For many people, my experience, usually women, but not necessarily all women. I just know that women more than men. I haven't heard a man say this, and who knows why. But sometimes women, it is a very sexual experience, and they might engage with themselves in that way while they're getting a download, because it's so intimate. Energetically, it's such a powerfully intimate experience. And of course, there's varying levels of this. But I've had, there's just, once you've had that and you come back to the third dimension, it's just like, man, it's just, why am I even here? What are we doing here? And that, again, is another testament to the fact that we're shifting, because it would actually be cruel of them to give us that experience and then force us to stay here. So that must mean that we're moving towards that, because they want us to have that, inter-quantum entangled experience more and more, so that we can move towards there. So it must mean that we are moving that way. Otherwise, for them to do that, again, would be cruel. It would just be, it would be very unkind to show you something that you can't have, just to tease you like that. All right, so 5D reality is spiritual, energetic, and emotional quantum entanglement. Lower emotions are a result of 3D and beneath, so 3D and 2D. And they are the emotions. Let me read this again, see if I can get what I was trying to say. Lower emotions are a result of 3D and beneath to interact with isolation. So again, this has come up many times. If you've been on my channel, you've heard it. But if you're new, if you wonder, are these beings, because we got this thing going on right now where there's these drones and plasmoids, and pretty soon what's happening, you've been given the hint. You've been given the hint by the Pentagon, by the so-called whistleblowers. There's going to be real whistleblowers coming out soon. But if the dark forces get their way, they're going to keep hinting that these higher dimensional beings have ill intent, that they are evil and that they want to harm you. And so they're going to basically say that they're demons. Now, demons, I know. I used to be an exorcist. I've looked demons in the face. I've seen people transform into demons. And I can tell you that demons are two-dimensional beings. They're not part of the third dimension. But they can be pulled into the third dimension through other people, or sometimes, as some kind of poltergeist or things like that. But they are two-dimensional. They're not third-dimensional. And that is because we experience isolation here. So negative feelings, fear, anger, lust, greed, falsehood, all of that, deception, those are things, those are emotions that serve a purpose in the second dimension, in the second dimension, that's all there is. If you want to know what hell is the second dimension. And in the second dimension, there is only negative feelings. There aren't any positive feelings in there. But, by the way, just to let you know, if people do slip into a hell, all they have to do is just sincerely ask for whatever they believe, it is. God, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, higher power. If they have an honest desire to connect with what they, consider to be God, they'll be taken out of hell immediately. unlike what you're told. But in the third dimension, we, as I said, we live in 3 dimensions, but we operate in 2 dimensions. Unless we're artistic or spiritual. And then we start to seek to express third dimensional, where all these things come together. This is why, by the way, this is why people watch movies and go to plays and watch performances, because it is an interaction of working through all those negative feelings and balancing them out to create a positive one. And so that's our third dimensional reality. We have happiness, and we have sadness, and we have joy and peace and love, and we also have deception and hatred and anger and violence. We have them all mixed together. That's the third dimension. Fourth dimension, boom, you're out of that. And the fifth dimension, and you keep going higher and higher, you get further and further away from that. But I can tell you from personal experience that once you get out of this third dimension, all of that negative stuff goes away. And believe me or don't believe me, you'll find out. Again, this isn't a belief. I didn't know the difference between an alternate universe and a dimension. I didn't know. Most people, I even hear people talk about other dimensions, and they don't know what they're talking about. They think another dimension is another version of this world, but maybe something's different, or maybe the laws are different. That's not a dimension. That is an alternate universe. A dimension is a whole other thing. And I'm here to tell you that these beings that come to us are not from an alternate universe. They are from a higher dimension, which we are connected to. So negative emotions cannot exist when quantum entanglement occurs. You cannot wish somebody harm when you can feel their feelings and you identify with their feelings. When you feel them, you would know. If you did something and it was harmful to them, you would feel the slap across your face. You slap somebody, you wouldn't be able to experience any of that negativity without it instantly coming back on you. And so you don't do that. You learn to never harm yourself. And the first step on never harming yourself is never harm somebody else. That's why the only real commandment that has any value in the New Testament is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, that is something we have to choose to do here. I know I did it today. I just finalized. I'm finalizing the drama of moving out of the house I was in to the new one, and there's a bunch of stuff there. It was a furnished house, and I go, if I took that, they'd never know. God, I need that. I could take that. I need one of those. They would never miss it. But I have to stop myself and go, Mike, you can't steal from somebody. Doesn't matter if they'll never know it's gone. It's not yours, it's theirs. You wouldn't want somebody doing that to you. We have to remind ourselves here in the third dimension, treat others the way you want to be treated. And in higher dimensions, they don't have to do that, because it's just like I said, the moment they slap somebody, you get hit. You never do that. One of my heroes, Dr. Joe Dispenza, shares a story. I've shared it a bunch of times, but I'll share it again because it is so true. He was doing a seminar teaching people how to awaken the pineal gland, which, by the way, we do every time we do these live guided interdimensional meditations. Everything that we do at the thunderwizard.com website and the shop there will awaken your pineal gland. In fact, I have videos, courses teaching you specifically how to actively awaken your pineal gland. So I encourage you to go do that. So he was doing a seminar on that in his method, and as they're doing this, I'm doing my best to remember what he said. I don't remember the exact words, but he said that he saw these huge beings lining the walls, huge light beings. And he's looking at these enormous beings, and somebody else says, "Do you see that?" He's like, "Yeah." So he asked them, he said, "Why don't you join us in the exercises that they were doing. And the being said, we would love to, but we can't. Because if we were to allow our frequency to come down to your level, it would damage us. And we love ourselves too much to damage ourselves. However, if you can raise your frequency up towards ours, we will meet you in the middle. And this is what interdimensional contact is like. It's an intermingling. So what did I say? 5D entity cannot negative emotions cannot exist when quantum entanglement occurs. So quantum entanglement is what happens when you get outside of the third dimension. Your energy and their energy merges. This is one of the most challenging things about this work, because when you're doing it and you're communicating with these beings, it's incredibly blissful. And then when it ends, you come back in your third dimensional body. It's traumatic, because you're back in this, and your identity, your ego feels like it's being torn apart. Feels like you're dying. Exactly what Odin went through on the Tree of Life. 9 days and nights he hung on the world tree, and then the runes revealed themselves to him. Screaming, he took them up. Runes means secrets of the multiverse. So it's you have to come out of your identity, which means you have to die to yourself, and it's a challenging, potentially traumatic experience. Screaming, he took up the runes, and then he became king of the gods. So that's what's happening every time we do these meditations. And it's still, for me, you would think, again, this is where the reality is different from what we believe or what we've been told. The way it's been presented, whether it's Christian religion or whether it's Buddhism or whether it's even Hindu religion, once you achieve enlightenment, you will be filled with bliss and love, and you will walk on water, and you will create jewelry out of your hands, and that's the feeling that we have. And the reality is, for me, has been very different. It's been it can be a painful process, and having your the two realities existing simultaneously can be very challenging. You really have to learn how to relax into it. So this shift that we're going through, this ascension process, isn't that boom, we're all hit with and it's all, no. That's why people are flipping out. Why do you think there's so many wars? Like never before. I have never in my life, I've been on this planet for 6 decades. Or I'm in my 6th decade. I've been on this planet a long time, and I have never seen this level of destructiveness towards the human race from the elites. They've done it, but they've always hidden it. They've been good at hiding it. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. The CEO that got unalived didn't even try to hide that. I mean, they came up with a patsy. Whether that guy was MK Ultra'd into doing it or not, I can tell you, the people behind it, it was all about money. It always is. And they're just not even, what's happening in the Middle East, they're not even trying to cover it up anymore. What happened they didn't even try and cover it up. They're just out there. I've never seen it like this before. And so that means that we are shifting, because people are losing it. They're flipping out. And it's because, when you're in this transition, I'm transitioning from, 3D to 5D. I'm in the midst of doing that. It's a challenging process. So whenever we do these meditations, the next day, I'm open for this to change, but if we have a really powerful meditation, the next day, I'm raw, and sometimes I'm physically tired. Sometimes I'm physically in pain, because my body is fighting it. And emotionally, to be taken to that level and then slammed back into the third dimension, it's sometimes those days right after. I do these meditations twice a week, and I've committed to it, and it's why I'm here. It's why I'm still here. But it doesn't change the fact that sometimes it's hard. It's very challenging. It doesn't have to be the case. If you're not having a hard time, good for you. I'm happy for you. It just means you don't have as much karma as I do, because karma is nothing more than attachment. But if you are like me and you have karma, then you know you're on the right track when you feel yourself getting pulled apart and it's challenging and there's trauma and pain and emotional stuff and feeling like you've lost your mind. That means that you're having a powerful experience. And it's nothing like I ever thought. I would have never thought that this is what it meant. I talked about dying to self. I talked about all that stuff, and to be honest, I had no idea really what I was talking about. I had no idea about a lot of stuff. I had some idea about some stuff, but what has happened to me as a result of extraterrestrials, absolutely nowhere near like anything I imagined it to be. And by the way, I just have to say, I didn't get into it, but I was going to say up here at the top, Animism is the most accurate explanation of consciousness. Extraterrestrial to me doesn't mean the same thing that it did 2 years ago. To me, an extraterrestrial is a conscious being that is identical in nature to my soul. It is not different from me. That's why, Dr. Greer bristles when people call ETs aliens. He goes, they're not aliens. They're not different from us. And I completely agree with him. In fact, when I want to connect with my family, my soul tribe, I connect to extraterrestrials. And I don't even know what species they are. Sometimes I can see that they're a different species. Sometimes I can see in my mind's eye what they look like. I saw what this gentleman looked like, and imagine a 7-foot tall mantis being. That's not something we're designed to see, but I mean, he's my brother. I'm going to get emotional here. I love him as much as I love any being in this universe, and I know that he has that love for me, and I feel that. I feel his intense love for me, and more so than any human. I've never felt the level of love that I feel from extraterrestrials. I've never felt that from a human, and that's because humans are in the third dimension, so they can't. Higher dimensional beings can, but an extraterrestrial is simply a being that isn't born and raised on Earth. It's not alien. It is not different. So that's true for extraterrestrial physical beings, beings that come from another planet. It is also true of beings that come from other dimensions. Now, here's something that I never thought. Gods are no different than us. The only difference between, if we want to pick a god, let's pick Hanuman. The only difference between me and Hanuman is that Hanuman is in a higher dimension. If I communicate with him outside of religion, if I communicate to him interdimensionally, we will be on an equal par with each other. Now, he has a lot more power than I do in the third dimension. He has a lot more knowledge and understanding, but the only reason he has that is because he's in a dimension that allows for that. So, compared to the third dimension, he's a god. But if we were to get to his level, it would just be normal. Just like for two-dimensional beings, for me to step up, to jump, to go up, to even look up, for me to do that is only gods can do that, because from a two-dimensional being's perspective, I can put my finger in front of him and one behind him, and all he knows is that something's in front of him and something's behind him, and then they disappear, and it doesn't know what the heck is going on here. All he knows is that some god is interacting with him. I'm not a god. I'm a third-dimensional being. I mean, I am a god. We all are. But in the third dimension, I'm just a third-dimensional being. So the point I'm trying to make is that these are individuals. People have asked, and this is something people have gone back and forth. Are the gods archetypes? No. They are beings. Now, there are different cultures that have different names, seemingly for different gods, and I'm here to tell you it's the same person. He's interacting with different cultures. Shiva is one of them. Shiva and Odin are the same person. They even have the same name. In Sanskrit, one of Shiva's names is Ugra, which means terrifying. Guess what? Odin's name in Old Norse is Ug, which means terrifying. It's the same person. So Odin and Shiva both came into the historical record at the same time. It's an individual. It's not an archetype. I mean, you can worship them as archetypes if you want, but there's a person there. There's a conscious being there that has an identity and has thoughts and feelings and desires and all of that. And so I found that to be true. So again, animism. Every single thing in the multiverse has an identity that can be communicated and interacted with. So 5D identity cannot coexist with the 3D self. We are in a transition state. And that's kind of, again, what I'm trying to put here. These two aspects of me cannot continue to coexist. One of them is going to have to win out. I'm looking forward to when my 5D essence wins out. By the way, as I'm thinking about it, I haven't had this experience because I'm not super visual when I am in my astral body. Some people are. And that 5D version of me, which, looks kind of strange, they have looked at beings and talked to them in higher dimensions, and they can't make out what's on top of their shoulders. And they're like trying to figure it out, and the being's like, don't worry, you won't be able to see what I really am. It just means that there's so much going on, and we have a third dimensional brain that can't put together what's happening. Another thing that's interesting, I've heard this from two different sources. I first heard it from an apprentice of mine who is very advanced in this interdimensional meditation. And she was talking about how she was taken to another planet, obviously in another dimension. And there's just this little tiny, dwelling, that's like a few feet across, maybe 6 feet across, 5 feet high or something like that. It looks like a really tiny little thing. And they said, come on into my home. And she opened the door and you looked in, and it's, the size of a football field. Close the door, it's only 3 feet tall. And she's flipping and she's like, don't worry, things are different here. But I heard that, and I was very interested about that. But then again, that's somebody's own internal experience. But then there was another person, Dr. Greer had, I think it was one of Dr. Greer's whistleblowers, who came across a ship, like a flying saucer. And it was small. But when you open it up and you look in, it's the size of a football field. Close the door, it's just a tiny thing. This is interdimensional. These are the interaction between dimensions, not universes, dimensions. So how did I come up with that? This 5D identity cannot coexist with the 3D self. We are definitely in a transition phase. What we're experiencing is going to change. Things are not going to stay this way for long. I don't know for how long. I don't know if it's going to be days, months, years, decades, millennium. I don't know. But I'm telling you, absolutely, this is going to change. These two things can't coexist. They can't. They can't. Now, I don't exactly know what is coming, but I do know it will be very different. I would love it if there was a solar flash event. I'm working towards that in my meditations. I keep getting seemingly hints that there might be one coming. I haven't gotten that direct. Well, sometimes I think I have, but sometimes I haven't. A while back I thought I was going to get taken out of this world. And you remember that. It was October 6th, I think. And I didn't. So I'm like, okay, So, and to be honest, I haven't gotten a direct message. I've gotten direct messages about a lot of things, but I haven't gotten a direct message about there's going to be one solar flash that's going to hit the world and change everybody. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means I haven't gotten that message, or I haven't been able to if I have gotten that message, I haven't been able to interpret it or hear it. But things are going to change, and they're going to change in ways I don't think we can even begin to imagine. And that is going to be the case. I don't know exactly what, and I don't know when, but I know that it's coming. And based on what I'm seeing, we are definitely in the midst of it. And again, the light beings did tell me when I asked them, what is this event going to be? Is it going to be fleets of spaceships coming to Earth? And the response was no. It's going to be a series of solar waves of love that are going to penetrate the Earth and shift everything up. And then later I was given some clues, not a direct message, but clues that there will be 3 harmonic versions of Earth. How that's going to happen, when it's going to happen, I don't have those specifics. But I know that something is definitely going to come. And this whole drone UFO plasmoid thing, this is absolute proof to me that we are on the verge of it. So anyway, there's my update for the time being. I hope this reaches you well and brings you joy. And again, please show up to the live guided interdimensional meditation. And please, guys, if you like these videos, please support the channel. I need your support more than ever. You can support me directly, support.thunderwizard.com. Follow the instructions there. Thunderwizard.com is where you can subscribe. You can become an apprentice and work with me on a regular basis. You can subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You can get live Zoom group classes. And my books, of course, you can get at michaelwilliamdenny.com. And again, come to the live guided meditation every Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m., streamed live for free. I love you all. I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.